For recent high school grads like you, there are no seats available at this event. You have no place here as a loser. Leave my face alone, please." With a big, happy smile, the director reprimanded me. I wanted to say a lot, but I couldn't disagree with the department director, who was my supervisor. I had no choice but to obey his commands. Matt is my name. My age is 27. Not long after I was born, my mother died. After that, my father and I shared a home until he passed away in a terrible workplace accident. My paternal grandparents took me in when I was a young child in elementary school. However, both of my grandparents lost their lives in an automobile pileup catastrophe. At the time, I was a high school student. No one wanted to take me in, and all of my family were whispering behind my back that Matt brings bad luck. I lived alone in my grandparents' home for a while. I wanted to provide a comfortable life for my grandparents who reared me. So, I worked hard in my studies in order to eventually work for a reputable corporation. My grandparents, however, are no longer with me. It seemed useless to study. I felt helpless after losing all of my cherished family members. So I left university. I had to make a livelihood, though. As a result, I started working as a site worker for the nearby building company. I went home to sleep to forget my sorrow. After working mindlessly until I was worn out, I simply continued to relive these meaningless days. Then something occurred one day. "Will you live with me?" That was said by my mother's side uncle who unexpectedly turned up at my grandparents' house. After my mother passed away, I lost contact with her side of the family, and I had only met my uncle when I was a young child. When he abruptly gave me a place to live, I was initially perplexed, but it appeared that he was worried about me. "You're a kid still," Uncle responded. "You must be in an adult's custody." In addition, as a single man, I had been living alone. I like to live with Matt because I've always felt lonely living alone. He gave me a cheeky wink as he said that. I chose to move in with him after seeing him like that and feeling happy for the first time in a long time. My uncle took good care of me. He provided me with everything I needed: clothing, food, and housing, and also gave me advice about work. The company I was working at paid low wages and had a high risk of injury. So he was worried about me and introduced me to a new job. "Your father died in an accident at work. As a father figure to you, I'm worried about you." The company my uncle introduced me to was a major corporation where normally someone with just a high school diploma wouldn't be able to get a job. I was assigned to a sales department that was short-staffed and incredibly busy, almost desperate for extra hands. At first, the reaction from others was iffy. Why would a high school graduate join this company? I'll do my best not to cause any trouble. I had learned business manners from my uncle before joining the company and had done all the studying I could. I worked hard, taking full advantage of my knowledge and skills. Plus, the physical and mental strength I gained from my construction job also helped me as a salesperson. Gradually, I started to achieve results, and after a year, I had become a fully familiar member of the sales department. Once I became a member of the team, our company had a great atmosphere and was a comfortable place to work. I hope to keep working here until retirement. Feeling quite comfortable, I've been thinking about continuing to work at this company for a long time to come. But then one day, an unexpected event occurred. It was early autumn, shortly after I turned 27. Our company's president was promoted to chairman, and the vice president was decided to be the new president. The aim seemed to be to bring a fresh perspective into the company and strive for further corporate development. In line with this, there were changes in personnel within the company. The manager of the sales department I belonged to was transferred to a branch office. My elderly mother lives alone in my hometown. I had requested a transfer to the local branch there for a while now, and it's been approved. I'm living and working with my mother from now on. I see. It's sad, but please do your best there, too. The manager was a good man that treated even me, who was a high school graduate, without discrimination. His transfer was a bit of a shock to me, but I couldn't just keep feeling down about it. The new manager for our sales department was appointed from the branch office's sales department. It seemed that the candidates for the next manager, including the assistant manager and the section chief, We're currently handling a significant project and had expressed a desire to defer any promotion. I'm looking forward to working with you all. The new director, Johnson, greeted us with a big smile. At first, I thought he would be friendly and approachable, but then, "Hey, you, what's your highest level of education?" I graduated from a university. HM, you have a fairly decent educational background. At our first meeting, Director Johnson unhesitatingly asked us about our educational backgrounds. I later learned he judged people by their academic qualifications and either completely ignored those who didn't meet his standards or subjected them to behavior bordering on power harassment. Of course, Director Johnson didn't like people like me who graduated from high school. You're a high school graduate. I can't believe it. How can someone with such low bottom education be in this company and in the head office of the sales department? I was assigned to a branch office of the sales department. He ignored all my achievements and looked down on me simply for being a high school graduate. Whenever he opened his mouth, it was nothing but insults and foul language. I can count on one hand the number of times he's actually called me by my name. Dumping his work on me and only taking achievements from me is his daily routine. You should be grateful. I even use a high school graduate like you. His unbelievable actions and words made it seem like he didn't even regard me as human. Moreover, he started sabotaging my work to drive me out of the company. One day, something happened. I was preparing to visit a client where we were in the final stages of consultation. I was planning to use a projector for my presentation. So, I packed a USB with the presentation data into my bag. However, why is the data gone? I realized at the last minute that all the data in the USB was deleted. I managed to retrieve the data, but we started the presentation much later than scheduled. Of course, this left a bad impression on the client. Despite my best efforts, the presentation didn't go well, and I returned to the company disheartened. What's wrong with you? You look so depressed. Let me guess, your presentation was a failure. It's no surprise. Presentations can't be done without data. As Director Johnson said that with a smirk, I realized that he was the culprit. I didn't mind him disliking me, but I never expected him to go this far. I did everything I could to recover the lost time and managed to secure the contract. When I reported that the contract was finalized, Director Johnson had a look on his face that seemed to say he was not pleased. You were getting cocky for a high school graduate. His sharp gaze made me suspect he would repeat his actions. My premonitions soon came true. I was heading to a party celebrating the new president's inauguration at a luxury hotel. However, I encountered Director Johnson outside the venue. "Why are you here?" "Well, I was also invited to the party." A useless high school graduate was invited? "Wait here." I wasn't allowed to enter the venue, so I had no choice but to wait outside. Soon after, Director Johnson came back, holding my seat with both hands. I don't know what the mistake was, but when I checked, there really was a seat for you. You know, trash like you doesn't belong here. As he said so, he roughly put my seat down in the hallway. There's no seat for high school graduates like you at this event. A loser like you has no place here. Get the hell out of my face. Director Johnson grinned and said that. I guess he really hates me. I realized once again, it's impossible not to feel anything after being treated like this. But after all, he is still my boss, and I'm just a general employee. I'm not allowed to rebel outright. I understood. I'm leaving now. With just that retort, I immediately turned on my heel and left the scene. However, just 10 minutes later, I received a call from Director Johnson. I answered the phone with a frown on my face. "Hello. Come back here right now." "Do I need to come back? But you told me to go away, right?" "What is going on? Just come back right now. It's an order from your boss." Just then, the call ended abruptly. I headed back to the party venue with a sigh. When I returned to the venue, I saw the new president and his secretary, and there was Director Johnson with a pale face. "I'm back." "Director Johnson, what happened?" When I spoke up, Director Johnson quickly turned toward me and showed a confused expression. Well, I let out a small sigh at Director Johnson's hesitant response. "What's going on?" I turned to the secretary instead of him and asked her, However, instead of the secretary answering, the new president, who was standing next to her, spoke up first. I heard this fool kicked you out. Is that true, Matt? Yes, sir. It's true. The new president smiled bitterly and replied to me, please call me Uncle Bob like you always do. I accidentally revealed your true identity to this big fool earlier. Hearing the whole story, I couldn't help myself but be dumbfounded. After kicking me out, as the start time of the party approached, Director Johnson was waiting outside the venue for the arrival of the new president. It seems he was trying to curry favor by greeting the new president before the other employees. But then, President, I apologize. There's been a bit of trouble. As the new president appeared before Director Johnson could greet him, the secretary suddenly stepped forward. Problem? What happened? Actually, the chairman's son is missing. We checked, and his seat itself is gone. Matt isn't here yet? What do you mean his seat is gone? Director Johnson's eyes widened at the words of the new president. No seat for Matt. Could it be that? Finding it hard to believe his own speculation, Director Johnson asked the new president, is this Matt from the sales department we're talking about? The president glanced at his secretary and replied to Director Johnson as if he had no choice. Yes, Matt from the sales department is the chairman's son. The chairman and I have been close personally for years, and I've known his son Matt for a long time. Indeed, I've had a long relationship with him. My uncle had legally adopted me and taken me in. However, my uncle had no experience in raising children, and at first, he struggled with how to care for me. That's when he consulted with Uncle Bob, who was the vice president at the time. We had a good private relationship, and he had a son who was about my age, so he gave my uncle various advice. Uncle Bob was concerned about me, frequently visited my house, and he was amiable and kind. With his help, my uncle and I became closer. I joined my uncle's company, but I didn't want to be treated specially, so I kept my relationship with him a secret. On the day I first called my uncle Dad, he apparently rushed to report to Uncle Bob right away. I got a call out of the blue from the president in tears, wondering what was going on. I vividly remember that I apologized to the smiling Uncle Bob, turning bright red with embarrassment, saying, "My father's caused you trouble. It was my request that he attend a party this time. But where was his seat gone? Oh, by the way, only a few executives know about this, so please keep it under wraps." The moment he heard Uncle Bob's words, Director Johnson's face turned pale blue. Afterwards, Uncle Bob and the secretary confronted Director Johnson. He was acting strangely. They learned he had put my seat in the hallway and sent me away. So that's what happened. Why didn't you tell me? Director Johnson, with a mix of anger and confusion, confronted me. I gazed and kept my distance from him. I asked to keep it a secret when I joined the company because if people knew I was the chairman's son, they would favor me. I wanted to be promoted on my own merits. Plus, if it got out, it would attract trouble. Some people like you, Director Johnson, I pointed out, leaving him speechless. But maybe I should have been upfront from the beginning. Then you, Director Johnson, wouldn't have resorted to borderline bullying behavior towards me. Did I bully you? Hearing my words, Uncle Bob's face contorted. Deciding it was time to come clean, I revealed all the instances of bullying I had suffered from Director Johnson. As I shared my story, Uncle Bob's expression began to mix with anger. The secretary standing next to him also grimaced significantly. I can't believe we have someone of such low caliber in our company. Before judging others by their education, you should reflect on your own character. Faced with the secretary's relentless words, Director Johnson hung his head. Indeed, I heard you were promoted from the branch office due to your achievements. But from Matt's story, it seems those were not your own. No, it's not like that. I mean, Director Johnson's gaze wandered around with cold sweat dripping down his face. And when his gaze turned to me, he tried to cling on to me with a goofy smile on his face. I was good to you, right? I gave you work and was tough at times, but it was all to help you grow. Disgusted by his inconsistency, I said, "You didn't delegate work to me. You dumped it on me." And then, calling me a high school graduate, bottom of the barrel incompetent. You've constantly ridiculed me. How could anyone grow with such horrible verbal abuse? Where in the world can you find someone who could? I've never felt you were good to me. Wait, please. My dream is to be promoted to an executive position. I don't care about that. Then I pulled something out of my pocket. What's that? This is a voice recorder. I've been recording your harassment at work. I was preparing to bring this to HR, but it seems that won't be necessary now. When I glanced at Uncle Bob, he nodded firmly at me. Let's take this matter to HR immediately. It seems our firm has some inappropriate decisions. While Uncle Bob said so, he glared at Director Johnson with cold eyes. That must have been the final straw. Director Johnson's face turned from blue to white, and he collapsed weakly to the ground. After that, Uncle Bob immediately contacted HR, as he had promised. As a result, Director Johnson not only received a stern warning from Uncle Bob, but also directly from Uncle who heard the story. He was then demoted and sent back to the branch office because he was not allowed to stay in the same department with me. The story of his demotion due to bullying had spread throughout the branch office, and I heard that he no longer had a place in the company. Having lost his position and everything else, Director Johnson apparently looked utterly exhausted. The new president also emphasized to keep my identity as the chairman's son confidential if I wanted to remain in the company. No one would believe Director Johnson anymore. Meanwhile, I've been working comfortably in the now peaceful sales department. The new director took over after wrapping up a project as the assistant head. Following that, the section chief became the assistant head, and I was promoted to a senior position. I plan to work even harder than before and aim for further promotions.